All right, we made it. So, yeah, just before I took the dog out, I tripped on my cord, and then the computer fell down, which is can be a really stressful thing, especially when I'm already having FlexGate screen problems. But picked it up, dusted it off. Everything's fine. Looks like I'm even able to create YouTube videos, so that's good. And actually, the only thing I want to be doing right now is eating sunflower seeds. But all right, so looks like I'm starting to run out of willpower, but we still have work to do. So I don't know. Somehow I got to get this sunflower seed eating stopped. Come on, Blaney Bobs, you can do it. You can. Oh, I know what I wanted to do. Blaney Bobs. All right, I need to put this YouTube video back into here. Yeah, I just want to check. Can I hear myself? Audio check number one. Good. All right, we're up. We're ready to go. All right. So if you've been following me all day long, great. Let's do it. So let's do a quick review, and then we'll just jump right into the ye old curriculum. So right now I'm recording these videos because I need to create some educational courses. Now the educational courses is going to be the foundation of everything. Why? Well, actually the courses, this is the foundation of the software, of the actual thing. So all right, so we have this thing, we call it Qubit Connect. Real simple software. And the guys over at Y Combinator, they say like, hey, if you're gonna have a successful business, you need to explain to me your product in 2 minutes. What does your product do? And I say, all right, no problem. So these days, the little kiddies are spending all their time on social media because they can get like a really strong dopamine hit with really, really, really small amount of effort. So it's addictive. Anytime we can get a really strong hit, dopamine, with very little effort, then our brain is going to favor those activities. So, look, in my product, what you want to do is you want to write down a task. And then, of course, once you've written down a task, often you're going to have a problem. Either you're not putting enough effort into it, or you don't have enough skill. And so, if you need to put more effort into it, then likely you're going to need some kind of spark, trigger, something to spark you, to get you going, a little bit of motivation. And if you don't have enough skill, then you're going to need a facilitation trigger. You need some education in order to figure out how to get it done. And regardless of whether you want a spark trigger or facilitation trigger, it's helpful if you can break down a task into something which is actionable. So the app that I got here is, well, what we do is you write down a task, no matter what the task is, then you're gonna write down the 4 steps. Try it. I mean, you can write down 2 or 1 or whatever you want, but you're gonna break your task down into subtasks. And then, well, if it's still not actionable, then you can take that step and you can add a task line, a new row, and then break that task down into smaller steps. And that's it. And some people, they say, well, I don't know what the steps should be. Like, I've never done this task before. So, no problem. So you click on that subtask, and then you click Qubit, and Qubit will automatically create a row and break down that task into 4 steps using AI. And then if it's still not actionable, then you can click on Qubit, click on the subtask, and it will create another row and break down into 4 smaller steps. And that's the main idea behind Qubit, is that if you want to get some result, then you need to be able to take action. And if you're having problems taking action, then likely the action is probably not actionable. Now, after you've broken it down into something that you can actually do, then you're going to come up to the dial, the priorities, and you're going to put your 2 biggest priorities in these spots. Because what happens when you're on social media and you know there's something you need to do? Let's say brush your teeth. And you're laying there in your bed, you're playing social media, and you're fighting yourself. Is it brush your teeth or social media? Social media. Yeah, social media. I don't have to do any effort, and I get dopamine. Brushing my teeth, that does nothing. It takes all effort, and there's no reward. No dopamine. So the better thing to do is to put 2 things that you have to do. I need to both brush my teeth, and I need to make my lunch for tomorrow. So now it's either do this work or do that work. And then it's like, okay, I'm doing social media, but there's 2 things I need to do. So what do you want to do first? All right, I'm going to make my lunch for tomorrow first. So it automatically changes. It dials you in to a priority. Now, in addition to that, on the right-hand side of the screen, like let's say that I want to play social media for another 20 minutes. Then what you can do is you can go find that priority. Now, if you dialed it in, then it's going to be at the top of your task list. You can click that task, and you can set up an alarm. So that in 10 minutes from now, alarm's going to go off. It's going to say, get up and make your lunch. And that's it. That's the whole app. That's the whole app. Yeah, that's the whole app. Sounds great. So how did you build this app? Like, what's the foundation of the ideology behind your application? And then I'll say, well, funny you should ask. In fact, when we think about our marketing, we need to have people on our side. We need to have a system where people are producing content. So the product has to have an option, has to have the ability to create content. Oh, really? Tell me more. Well, in order for people to start creating content, we've created this thing called, do you want to be a mentor and make affiliate commissions? Oh, really? What do you mean? Well, so the thing is that this whole methodology behind this application can be taught in this educational process. And we feel that if people need help getting things done, then probably they can benefit from having a mentor. So what we did was we created a coaching PDF and videos to help you get through the content with friends. One person's going to role play the teacher, another person's going to role play the student. So the manual has left, right side, and right side. Now, the benefit of being a mentor is that if you facilitate more than 10 facilitation experiences per month, then your affiliate link will receive 20% of all the people you sign up that month. And if you facilitate more than 25 experiences, then your affiliate goes up to 30%. And if you if you facilitate more than 40 educational experiences, then you're going to get 40% of everyone of the monthly. So that's every month. When you sign somebody up, you get 40% of that monthly fee every single month. Oh, really? Really? Wow. So what happens is people, they produce content because they want to be a mentor. Because the more lessons that they teach, then the more people they can sign up to the app. And every time they make a sale, they get paid. And also the people who are using the app, the mentor is incentivized to encourage their students to keep paying for using the app because they get paid every month. Every month they get 20%. Incredible. It's amazing. Now, the mentors are also incentivized to turn their students into teachers. Because when their student uses their teacher's affiliate link, I mean their affiliate link, which is attached to their teacher's affiliate link, then their teacher will make 5% commission off of the lessons that their students teach. Well, not exactly the lesson, but so let's say you have a student. So the student's paying for the app, and then the student starts teaching. So that student then has an affiliate link. So the student has a student. Now the student of the student pays the monthly fee. The original mentor of the student, the mentor of the student, the mentor of the mentor of the student. If the student is teaching more than 10 mentor lessons a month, then the teacher of the teacher gets 5% of that student's monthly fee. So if I'm a mentor, I'm making money from the students that I teach because they're paying their monthly fee, and I'm getting a little piece of the monthly fee of the students that my students teach. So it means that I have incentive to produce UGC content, and I'm also incentivized to teach my students how to create UGC content. You see? So I'm incentivized to be a mentor, meaning I'm incentivized to help my students learn how to use the app and to use it in their life. And I'm incentivized to help my students develop marketing plans and create marketing techniques in order for them to find students. Okay, interesting. So what's this content that you guys are teaching? Good. Glad you asked. All right, so far, we've been talking about functionality. We started with the Buchholz drive model. Then we moved into the Fogg's motivation model. Now we're going into deliberate practice. All right. Now, here's our AI. It's gonna, well, I guess I really have to stop eating these bits now. Okay, focus. All right, let's do this. Everybody ready to go? Camera, action. All right, so the last thing that we talked about was the concept of Fogg's, and I don't really know what to do regarding, like, I don't have an additional unit for the Fogg's motivational model. We talked about two different activities. One was the facilitation trigger activity, and we also talked about the spark trigger activity. And I mean, potentially there would be some activity where you could combine those things together. But then at the same time, I feel like that might get a little bit too complicated. And at this point, we don't want to overly complicate things. So let's just put a pin in it. Let's stop there. And let's focus on the next topic. So the next topic is the deliberate practice. Um, Deliberate practice, it's a way of defining roles. So what you want to do is like in the previously what we've been defining is we've been talking about well a couple of things. We've been talking about level of effort, we talked about level of success, we talked about facilitation trigger, and we talked about spark trigger. And in each of those, we're mostly trying to figure out, like, for example, level of effort. We're talking about how do you improve your level of effort, and that has a lot to do with motivation. And then we talked about how do you improve your skill, and well, that has a lot to do with facilitation. And so there is a natural combination between the idea of how do I increase my level of effort and my like my level of motivation, and then how do I improve my level of skill. And hey, Fabio, was so did you just wake up in Brazil? Anyways, hey, um, I'm gonna keep talking because I gotta get this thing done. You know, right now I'm actually like talking to AI. So, um, anyways, I'm gonna. All right. All right. So in the first two chapters, we talked about Buchholz's drive model, and we talked about Fogg's motivational model, and there's a connection between the two. Buchholz's drive model, we're mainly focused on the level of effort. So we're talking about like how much motivation and how much drive you have, which is pushing you to move from laid back to diligent. And when we talk about levels of success, then we're talking about how you're going to improve your ability, your knowledge, competency, and skill so you can move from trailing, low level of success to a leading or a high level of success. And then in the next unit, we talk about a fog model in order to understand that, see, sometimes with to take a leading position in order to improve your success, then likely you're going to have some facilitation trigger to help you to do more complicated and more difficult tasks. And you'll also need some spark triggers to help you to take action and increase your level of effort. So, and in that case, most of the activities that we focused on were to help people to mainly to improve specific areas. Like, what is it? A specific task where you need some facilitation triggers. So we listed those tasks. And then what are some other tasks you need to do where you need some kind of spark trigger? And then we also talked about feel you need to improve your level of effort. And we talked about some areas of life where you need to improve your level of success. Now, when we bring all those ideas together here in this concept of deliberate practice. So in deliberate practice, let's start with this first example. So with deliberate practice, the way I like to think about it is you're going to choose some kind of role. You're going to be answering a question. For example, which skills do we need to succeed? So if you want to become a football player, then it's likely you're going to have to work on three specific areas. You're going to have to improve your physical fitness. You're going to have to develop your ball handling skills, and you're going to have some understanding of spatial awareness. Unfortunately, you can't exactly design a specific exercise which helps your physical fitness because physical fitness is a broad category. So in this case, what I decided to do was I decided to break down the broad category into some subcategories. For example, speed. And then I broke the speed down into specific elements. All right. So we got speed. Acceleration is a type of speed. Deceleration is a type of speed. Um, Now, endurance is a type of endurance. And then top speed is also a type of speed. So here we have three different types of speed: acceleration, deceleration, and top speed. And then what you're going to do is you're going to design some kind of activity to improve your speed. Maybe you're going to design an activity to improve your acceleration, or you're going to create an activity to improve your deceleration or to improve your top speed. In any case, what you have to do is you have to develop educational experiences or exercises to help you to develop your speed. And then developing your speed is going to help you to develop your overall fitness level. Second, for example, ball handling. Now, when we talk about ball handling, also you're going to have like how fast can you control and how well do you control the ball, how much strength can you have with the ball, how quick are you with the ball. But those are kind of like overall categories. But the actual element or the technical thing that you have to do with the ball are things like tackle and steal and pass and shoot and dribble. And so you're going to want to design a specific exercise in order to, for example, quickness. Let's say that we want to be able to shoot quickly. So we're going to design some kind of exercise to be able to shoot quickly. All right, and then we have spatial awareness. Anyways, you can see the overall idea here. And so what you want to do is you want to try to pick some specific role in your life. Like, who do you want to be in your life? Or what is a specific type of job that you want to do? Or what is a kind of like, who do you want to be in your relationship? Or what kind of physical health do you want? Or what kind of financial health do you want? And then you're going to try to figure out some basic categories, and then you're going to take those categories and then you're going to break it down into subcategories. And then once you have like a set of subcategories, then you want to break it down into elements. Now it doesn't always have like category subcategory elements, but that's a good way to think about deliberate practice in order to get some specific results. Like for example of with data standards. So when you have to talk about data standards, then you're going to have somebody who needs to enter the data into the system. Then you have another place where somebody's going to analyze the data, and then that data needs to trigger some kind of action. So these are the categories. Now, here we go with the subcategories. So when, for example, if we look at data entry, then you have to be able to recognize the trigger for data entry. You need to be able to file the change needed in the system. Then you have to have some way of enforcing that person to enter the data into the system. So these are all the subcategories of things that have to be done related to data entry. And then you have the elements. All right. So how are we going to create some method around the punishment of people who don't enter data into the system? Or how are we going to have um, like some message so that we can train or teach people to explain so they can develop the actual ability to find the needed change in the system? And how are we going to set up some spark triggers in order to enforce the entry of data into the system? And how are we going to create some kind of notification so that people will be able to see the trigger and recognize the trigger to enter the data? And then how are we going to create a culture in our industry or in our organization to help people understand the importance of entering data and actually doing the entry of data into the system? So, because at the end of the day, the question is simple: do we have the data? Yes or no? If it's no, then it means that you haven't figured out the elements which are going to reinforce the subcategories of data entry. And we can break that down for all of these other steps or categories in the process of data entry. And it's all answering the question about how can we increase sales using our data. All right. So now here's another example. So here's and the HR wants to saying that her HR assistant is making. So there's an HR manager saying that her assistant is making mistakes with the Excel formulas when she's reporting. So what are you going to do? You can threaten them because angry became so threat. If you threaten them, then well maybe I don't know became angry and threatened assistant. So that's one potential solution. And then you have control tactics. So if you reach less than 5% errors, or you will be penalized. So there's a lot of different ways where you can threaten or you can have control tactics. And the other way to do it is to create some kind of a training program. But the most important thing would be like, do you prefer to have like a proactive HR assistant? Do you want your HR assistant to have the hard skills? And then the question is, well, how do you put in the structure or the methodology to help your HR assistant to work proactively and to work through a training program? It always goes back to the question, which is like, what specifically is the role that you want that person to take on, and what is the role that you want to take on in your life? And then once you figured out a role, a specific role that you want to take on, then you want to figure out what are the categories that a person needs to excel at in order to be good at that role. And then once you have a good idea of the categories or subcategories, then you have to break it down into specific skills, which are specific elements. Like, what is the exact work that you need to do? What are the skills you need to do to be able to do that work? So you want to put all of that into a structure. So now you can go ahead and you can decide on some roles that you have in your life, and then you can be able to develop those skills and to do those actions. And what are the activities that you will have to engage in order to develop those skills and to do those actions in order to be that person and to do that role. All right, so I don't know. I feel like that might be too complicated. We have identified we're on the matrix and how to trigger action. Which skills do we need to succeed in our chosen role? Ask the student to find a role they want to master. Explain that every role can be broken down using this hierarchy: role, category, subcategory, element. You can't practice a role. You can only practice an element. An organization wants to increase sales using data entry, recognize the trigger, filing changes, enforcing entry. Element: creating a notification system, signaling the trigger, building a culture of importance, motivation, and setting up a spark trigger for enforcement. Point out that if data is missing, it means one of the elements in the chain is broken. Case study: HR assistant. HR assistants making Excel errors. Reactive or proactive. You can use threats, control tactics, or you can use deliberate practice, training. As the proactive assistant, you must define hard skills, elements, and provide structure to master them. All right, well, I'm not sure that's the best way to do that. But on the other hand, what we're trying to do now is we're only trying to get the structure down. Not necessarily trying to get like the final version. Because I think editing is obviously really important. Would you like me to create a summary of the table of unit, help students see their role? All right, I'm going to just say, we'll just say yes. Would you like me to create a summary table for this unit that helps the students see their role deconstruction at a glance? Yes. I'm not really sure what to say, so we're just going to say yes, role deconstruction. And while he's working on that, I'm just going to fix this document. Okay, that's done. Summarize. Okay. To master any part of your life, you must be able to see the gears that make it work. Start with a role. Instruction table. Facilitation. Look at your own role. If you had to pick one element to practice every morning of the week with. Use these examples to understand how to break down your own goals. All right, it's fine. We'll just save it and move on. There's no sense in going crazy when we haven't started editing yet. All right. Now we got 10 minutes. I don't know how much work we can do in 10 minutes. All right, let's see what's next. So now in the course, so now what we're going to do is we're going to move from the basic ideas, which are the functionality, and we're going to move into the implementation. So we want to talk about the hook, and we want to talk about the process value chain. So as you can see, the concept of deliberate practice, so the Buchholz drive model and the Fox motivation model, it gives you the foundation. And then deliberate practice, it's really about, that's the key to defining your roles. And then once you define your roles, then you're going to be able to plug in some of those, some of those subcategories, right? I mean, the task, when you plug it into the app, the task is going to be, well, it's most likely going to be an exercise to work on some element. But anyways, like all of these activities in the functionality aspect, they're all to help you to start to think up like all these variety of different tasks that you need to do. And then what happens is the person who is using your app, who's using the app, they're going to have all these tasks that they're going to want to enter into the app. Once they've entered tasks into the app, then they're going to start using this concept called Qubit. Now, what is Qubit anyways? Qubit, it comes from this thing that we call cube thinking, OKR methodology. And I felt like the OKR methodology wasn't very easy to use. And it wasn't necessarily, like, I just taught it to a lot of people. And I never even felt like I really understood it. And then like, I just talked to a lot of people. I talked to hundreds and hundreds of people. I just never got the sense that anybody really understood it. I mean, obviously I am. So the concept here is your objective is that you want to get some kind of outcome within a certain time period. So for example, I want 5 pounds of muscle within 2 months. Now, in order to get 5 pounds muscle within 2 months, I need to break down this task into subtasks. And what are the subtasks? The subtasks are push-ups and running. All right. Now, push-ups, it's not actionable. So we need to break push-ups down. We need to click Qubit. We need to break it down into actionable steps. All right. So then that means what? So 20 times, 20 push-ups 3 times a day on these days, or 30 minutes of running on these days. Right? So the OKR methodology, if you define it this way, I will achieve this outcome by this date by doing this activity this many times in this time period. Well, it's difficult for people to do that, to think through it, and then to actually make a plan. It's a lot of thinking. It's a lot of activity. So here, for example, I will gain 5 pounds of muscle within 2 months. I will do 20 push-ups 3 times a day on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I will go running 30 minutes on Tuesdays and Saturdays. I will rest on Thursdays and Saturdays, also Sundays, and I will also eat no more than 5 grams of sugar, and I'll eat no less than three raw fruits and vegetables each day. At the end of 2 months, we can look at the results and then make a change to the goal and activities if desired. I mean, it seems simple, right? Because I've explained it like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. So it seems simple enough, but it takes time for that to work. But if you just like maybe somebody says, "Oh, I need to run more." So they say, "I need to lose weight," but they're not really ready to like combine all these different elements together. Maybe they're just like, "Well, maybe running will help." So then, okay, how do I break down running? Well, I need to pick a day when I'm going to go running. I need to make sure I have the running shoes, and then I needed some kind of spark to help me to go get running. All right. And then now you can set an alarm. So then you flip over to the page where you set an alarm and you set an alarm for 10:30 tonight. So right now it's almost 9 o'clock. And then I have a French lesson that's starting at 9 minutes. And then after the French lesson ends, then there's going to be about 30 minutes between the end of the French lesson and the alarm going off to go outside and take the dog for a run. And it's like about 4 degrees Celsius in my apartment right now. And outside it's going to be about -1. And I already know exactly what to wear to handle that type of cold. And I can do this activity. I've done it many, many, many times before. I have like inertia behind me. So, okay, let's go and do it. Now, do people actually have goals? Like, I'm going to gain 5 pounds of muscle within 2 months. I mean, it doesn't necessarily, the goal, if you force me to have an objective, which is like a specific outcome within a specific amount of time, that's not necessarily the way everybody thinks. Now, it's useful, obviously, but it's definitely not the way that everybody's working. So I think the focus is better if you put it on habits, which means I need to have a reoccurring alarms and pop-up calendar with streaks. All right. So after teaching deliberate practice for a really long time and realizing that people don't really want to do this activity, they don't actually want to write down a role and then specify the categories that they need to work on and then break it down into subcategories and then to define the elements and then write down um, like the exercise that they need to engage in to develop the element. It's just too robust. People they don't really think like that. What they think is like, I need to work on my speed. All right. What are the steps to working on your speed? Well, I gotta work on my acceleration. All right. What are the 4 steps to working on your acceleration? Well, I gotta design an exercise which requires me to, it's like you don't need deliberate practice. What you need is you need to write down the task, whatever level of specificity that you are aware of, and then you need help breaking it down into subtasks. That's it. So I see how it's useful for you to have a broad understanding of a role. But that's where the course, like the mentor, is going to have a lot of disconnect with the students. Because suddenly the students are going to be like, well, actually, I don't really know the role. I know some things I want to get done in my life, but I'm not really sure. Like, what are all the things I have to work on? Like, I'm not sure I can create this in my life. So I don't know. I'm starting to feel like maybe we should remove deliberate practice because it's not really that useful. I've never had anyone that said, "Wow, deliberate practice is so useful." I mean, it's good for like just shaping the thinking for really, really highly motivated, intelligent people. People have extremely high IQs. They like it just to see it and they're like, oh, okay, I see. So anything in my life is going to be a role that breaks down into categories, breaks down into subcategories, breaks down into the element, and I have to exercise specific. So and then they're like, well, I'm already working on something specific. And then they just delete, and then they just forget deliberate practice because why would I need to? I'm not really thinking about deliberate practice. I'm just thinking about the specific elements that I'm working on. And I don't really need to have a broad picture of all the elements that, I mean, subcategories. I don't really need to see everything. I just need to work on the things that I think are important to work on. And that's the same with the OKR methodology, which is like, I don't necessarily have to have smart goals. Like people don't necessarily like to make smart goals. Obviously, it's more effective, but for an application which can be used in the broad public, this also would actually makes it more difficult for people to move on because suddenly you reach this educational part of my course where it's like, I don't think I can do it. I don't want to make a goal. I'm not sure what the goal should be. And like, I'm not sure if I want to like define what it means, like my roles and exactly what I'm trying to do in my life and what are the categories that I need to work on in order to develop that. That's why I created Cube Thinking. So Cube Thinking, so how do you, it's breaking down key activities. All right. So it's similar to deliberate practice because, right, so across the top, you have, horizontal, you have one dimension, and then up and down is the second dimension. So then if you want to go into more detail, you have to pull this thing out and look, then you can break it down into even smaller steps. And even these cards are broken down into even smaller steps. So the idea of cube thinking is just like, let's just break it down. Just start with something random, like anything that you want to work on, great. And then we'll break it down into steps. And if you can't figure out how to break that down, we can use AI. So, in fact, I'm going to remove deliberate practice because I just don't think it's that useful. Like this whole thing is difficult. This would be difficult for anyone who's not a business, especially kids. Like the kids aren't going to be like, "Oh, what is this?" Just use cube thinking. That's why it's called Qubit because it just simplifies everything. All right, so we got there. All right, that's interesting. So we removed deliberate practice. So all we have is Buchholz drive model and Fogg's motivation model. And then the next time we meet, we're going to talk about the hook and the process value chain, which is quickly, it's just the 4-part endeavor cycle, which is like you enter the program. Okay, what do you want to do? Map of the terrain, the route. Let's go. No, that's too complicated. It's not that useful. What the trigger? Well, we've already learned about triggers. And then we can explain how a trigger creates an action. An action has a variable reward. And then you're going to have to prepare the next trigger in order to set up the new action. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, well, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.